And I think there's no coincidence that a lot of times black folks, what do they say we suffer from? Heart disease, that's stress.
Yes.
A lot of things that they say that we're always leading the pack in as far as like health issues, I think it comes from like, we're still dealing with trauma.
Yes.
I saw this chart the other day on Instagram and it showed the pie as far as like how big the piece of pie is that we've been free, right? It was like slavery, then it was like the civil rights fight, and then now it's very small. Like we have a lot of negativity that's right at our backs, and that's definitely passed down. I know I'm bringing this up again, but it's just like I feel like I can't.
It's important. No, but
we're hard on ourselves, but we haven't had enough time to like get over a lot of this stuff.
We haven't healed as a community,
right?
And as a nation.
Right.
You know, we're still looking for our 40 acres and a mule.
Right.
You know? And I, you know, come on, you know. And so if you're looking, oftentimes, let's say, just do it at the level of the individual. When you have anger and unforgiveness towards someone, if that person fails to ever give you that apology, that person can walk around forever holding that in their hearts.
So that's what we're doing as a people.
That's what we're doing.
And then we're criticized for it, like, why y'all still talking about it? Why don't y'all get over it? I'm like, but y'all never made it right.
You have to acknowledge it for us to get over it.
And then we're punished for being behind the 8 ball.
Exactly.
That's it.
It's structural.
Damn it, we have a reason to be mad.
Structural.
We do.
Let us be mad.
I want to ask you, ladies, have you dealt with anxiety? I've had severe anxiety and depression at the same time, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I finally went in. I guess we get so used to being the superwoman that we don't think it's a big deal when we, you know, we're like, oh, this is just normal part of being a black woman in America, right? But like I felt like someone's knee, and this is what anxiety felt like to me. I felt like someone's knee was on my chest. I could never get enough oxygen in my lungs. I always felt like shallow breaths, and then I went to the doctors finally, which a lot of us don't do. We're gonna get into that as well. And they said I had a heart murmur that wasn't genetic. It was from my emotions and where I was as far as like my stress levels. And I ended up taking medication, which I thought, I'm a weak woman now. I couldn't cut it. Like, why couldn't I just like power through it? Or like, another thing black people do, pray it away. Ask the Lord to make us better. Well, the Lord made us be able to make drugs to fix that. What you said. We got to stop being ashamed of that and making fun of people that actually do that. Because it was 2 weeks where I was so depressed and I had so much anxiety. I was like suicidal. And if I didn't do that, I don't know what would happen, because it got me to a point where I can get through the short term. Like, it was really bad. Have y'all ladies experienced depression or anxiety?
Yes. Last year for me, right after I got married, I filmed my wedding, and I really had to confront some issues from my childhood with my father not being there. And throughout my lifetime, I always had extracurricular activities to manage and to cope. And as I got older, I no longer had that. And I'm like, okay, now I have to, it's forced me to really reach down to really understand my feelings. You know, I like to use this analogy. When you have food, you have bad food, you put it in, it eventually has to come out. And I use it the same way. When you have trauma, when you have those things that happen to you, they have to come out. You can only suppress them for so long, or you're gonna drive yourself into a grave. So I started going to therapy. It was to the point I would go outside and I would have to wear sunglasses because I didn't know when I was gonna cry. That was bad. So I started therapy, and thank goodness, you know, I'm okay now.
Can you please tell people how much it's helped you, and that it is not taboo, and you're not going to get deemed as the crazy lady? Like,
I was fearful of being the crazy lady, you know, being the black girl who everybody thinks has it all together. I'm here to tell you, I don't have it all together, and I'm finally okay with saying that. Therapy has helped me. I do FaceTime therapy. My therapist is in Sacramento, but it's definitely been really great for me. And one of my girlfriends, she really encouraged me to do it. I had put it off for so long, and I was like, you know what? I can't fix myself. I need help.
Good for you.
That's awesome.
Good for you. How about you?
So personally, I can't say at this moment that I've, you know, ever had anxiety or depression or anything like that. But I do realize a few months ago I moved to a new place. You know, I'm finally in a new state, and you know, in addition to that, just graduated from graduate school. Also started a new job. Like, there was a bunch of new, and I didn't realize why I was randomly different weeks or different days of the week I would just be up all night. And so it was really through talking to a friend who actually is currently in medical school, and again, just talking to her about like, just thinking through it, like, I don't know why I'm up, like, I don't know, just joking about it, but at the same time, she was like, honestly, there's a lot of new things happening in your life, and you haven't really sat down and processed it. So it's not like, so one thing that I'm really seeking to do now in my life is actually seek therapy, not because something is necessarily wrong, but because it's helpful, I think, from just talking to different people and their own experiences, the importance of just talking about your life with someone who doesn't know you in other aspects of your life. So
with no judgment.
With no judgment either.
No judgment.
Doctor, how does chronic stress, what is it actually, and how does it affect women?
With chronic stress, it's a manifestation of a wear and tear internally that goes on for long periods of time. Typically, there's a theory that was put forth back a few decades ago called the weathering theory. And with weathering, it talks about how black women in particular, or African Americans in general, our experience is unique in that there's an intersectionality for black women, let's go there, of gender and race. And as a result of that, you have to deal with the stresses that come with being a woman in America, as well as deal with the stresses that go with being a woman of color in America. And that's intense. And so historically, we have had to take on this superwoman role for survival, but there's a wear and tear that over time cumulatively resets your stress hormone levels. And in that reset, you're operating at levels that typically you shouldn't be at unless you are in a fight or flight mode.
Is that how you get the cortisol around your stomach?
Exactly. So it makes it difficult to lose weight. And so you're on the same meal plan or diet, plan as, someone else that's not African American, and you're wondering how come you're not able to lose weight. There are other things that are at play here, and it's not as simple as just pushing the plate back. So with chronic stress, you get a reset of your hormones, you get inflammatory conditions, you're more predisposed to them.
Hair loss?
And heart, that definitely.
Other things we always hear them talk shit about with black women,
Right.
can't grow any hair. I'm like, y'all did this to us.
Listen.
I'm blaming it on the man that has to wear the Claudias fake ponytail.
Well, I was actually going more in the medical arena as far as just heart disease, heart attacks and diabetes and autoimmune disease, things like that. We actually are at higher risk. And then even more significantly, later on, we may, if we are able to survive and we get all the years to our life, the quality of life is diminished in terms of your memory. And so you have more African American women being disproportionately represented in terms of development of Alzheimer's disease. And so cognitively, you're impacting and causing that stress on the brain that over time manifests and that's not normal to not have your memory in your senior or your golden years. You're supposed to still be clear and able to have cognitive conversation. So
that's all from stress, like long term.
Yeah. Wow.
It'd be interesting to compare the health of a woman in Africa that's never been here and the African American.
Yeah. That would
to see
awesome.
The difference because that's kind of like where we're supposed to be as far as like, if we didn't have the trauma of what's going on over here.
Well, there have been comparisons, and there is a difference in terms of the coping mechanisms and the tribe and village interaction between African Americans in America and Africans that come over and still have that connectedness to the motherland. You can even see it in other racial groups, Latinos, for example. Dietarily speaking, they have a better diet, come over here, take on our diet, and they take on our diseases. So you do see the interplay of culture and environment that can impact as well.
Wow, okay.
That's deep.
Well, we can attest that women are always bragging about being independent, but can independence contribute to chronic stress? I think I know the answer. Independence is something that it's like, it impresses our friends.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like, oh, wow, she's doing her thing, but I wonder how that it looks to men.
Yeah.
I wonder how, like, do they care about it as much as we do? I feel like men that I know say, you don't need a man because you got everything. You do everything for yourself.
Right. Yeah,
and so in my relationship now, I make it a point, even things I can't do, I like act fake helpless to make him feel like he's needed. Because I think in my earlier years, it's like, I got it. And then he's sitting there like, well, what do you need me for?
Right.
And I know it's like a mind game. And he's watching, but Making them feel wanted sometimes. I think that independence sometimes could that be a turnoff?
I think so. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think, you know, some of my guy friends joke and say, like, you know what, actually, like, if a girl wants to say they're independent and do everything, why not? Like, you know, I'll be the stay-at-home dad. Like, I'll be the one to, you know, you pay for my dates. So I think they're more, I don't know if it's a joke, and then when it's actually comes to the matter, they'll be like, you know,
2 months of that.
Right. but that's that. But I think just in the idea of independence, we're almost conditioned again to want that and to strive for that. Like, you know, I grew up in a single parent household. My mom, you know, I was one of 4 kids, and my mom was and is Superwoman in that capacity, and it almost was ingrained in me or conditioned for me to say, if you want something, you have to depend on yourself to get that. If you want, yes, love is important, yes, husband and et cetera is important, but are you going to 100% depend your life on someone else when I see what the effects could potentially be? So I think for me, I'm always conditioned to say, I want independence, but it comes also at a cost, you know, potentially. So.
And it's important what she mentioned in terms of generationally, it's handed down.
Yeah.
And so that whole, there's different images that actually the Black woman syndrome,
Superwoman.
yeah, it was countering other images that were negative. And one of those images was the sapphire image. And, you know, you have the Jezebel image and you have the Mammy image. These were images that were negative, that were being projected out there to America. And the counter to that was the Superwoman syndrome. So we're talking about it in a negative connotation, but one of the usages for that whole persona was to counter the other negative images that were out there of us. But then generationally, we took on that caricature and made it our own, and it is embedded in the DNA. And we're handing it down to our young ladies, and I think we're doing a disservice to them because now we know that it is contributing to diseases down the line, that chronic stress is developing, that even the milieu of changing physiologically as a result of where your mind is causing changes in your genes. It's turning on genes that would have predisposed you to conditions in your family that would have stayed off had you had a different experience in America, if you had had a happier one.
Wow. So we're changing our genetic makeup and the future of our children by the external stresses that are happening, the things that are happening to us in our environment.
That is crazy.
That's deep.
That is
That's
crazy.
very
Yes.
That's scary.
Yes.
That is very scary.
Wow. Okay. So we got to stop.
Right.
You gotta stop.
Okay. I mean,
that's the
We gotta
message.
start pulling our resources
Tell us
together.
how. I was like, yes.
Right. As far as like being independent, and I don't mean to say like we should just be dependent, like, oh, I can't do
Right.
anything, I'm a helpless female. I think everything's about balance, though, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
But balance is relative because my balance may not be your balance.
Right. True.
And when we talk about balance, oftentimes people are looking at it from, you know, being able to be all things to all people still and to be equally vested in all your areas of your life and your different relationships and your work environment, your home environment, that you're equally balanced. But that's not balance. Balance is being able to stay centered in the midst of chaos. Balance is being able to be fully present in your moments, even if those moments are brief. There are times where you may not have a lot of time to hang out with your girlfriend, but that cup of coffee for 30 minutes was enough to solidify and keep that bond strong. You didn't have to give several hours to make that happen. But we kind of, you know, it's all in the definitions as far as balance goes. And also authenticity and being able to say, I gotta be real. I gotta keep it real and recognize where I am and where I am not. And in keeping it real, you say, okay, I'm not that person. I no longer want to take on the identities of what the residue of my experience has been, what my history is.
How do we stop that, though?
Yeah.
How do we stop that?
I think, like I said, being real. No, really. I mean, it seems like it's like, okay, what does that mean, though? It means being authentic, having authenticity in your relationships. It's like, say, when we get dressed, do we get dressed for our men or for the women that see us more so? I think we get dressed more so for each other than we do for the brothers.
And Instagram.
I want to say for my damn self, too.
Right. Like, I like to look at myself in the mirror. How many people have not worn the same outfit twice because it's on Instagram. That's ridiculous.
I'm gonna be honest. That's me.
It's a cycle. Did it pass the grid? Okay, it's time to wear it. We can wear it again. It was a year ago. I can wear this again.
And that's something new. That's a new thing. That's probably another thing that just add on top of all the other stresses, right?
Mm-hmm. But now that you're talking about social media, one of the things that we do as women, and men may do this as well, the audience, you can join in and let us know. But for women, you see a snapshot in time of a woman. She's, speaking at a major event. Like say even now, we're sitting here, and our friends are seeing us on social media. And it's a snapshot in time, it's one particular aspect, but what we do is we look at all the timeline. And we grab all the experiences and we want to, I should be doing that, I should be doing that, I should, and we take and make that into a composite of who we should be. That's where the pressure comes in.
Yeah.
That's not realistic. That's not wellness.
Because no one shows themselves getting broken up with, being late on a bill, having a pimple, when the outfit doesn't look right. We don't show the failures. We show the highlights.
Right.
And then what we're doing to everyone else is making them feel weird about themselves and like less than.
Right.
Or even thinking that because we have a same experience, same age, same community, that you should be doing what I'm doing. Yeah. Sometimes it's really like comparison is the thief of joy, but it's like, seriously, if I'm the same person as you, or if I happen to be the same age, that doesn't mean I need to be doing what you're doing. Right. I probably don't want to do what you're doing. Like, you know what I mean? And you just have to be okay with that.